Lips in the jacket.
Oh. Hey, everyone. Hello again. This is Naomi Wolf, and this time I'm back with Emerald and Naomi and the incredible Emerald Robinson. Hello to everyone, and hi, Emerald.
Hi, I get it. I'm an emerald today. That's everybody. And then I must have been subconsciously feeling the Christmas spirit because I did put on green and then I put on red lipstick. So Merry Christmas already.
It is very Christmassy, and I think it's okay to start getting Christmassy. I'm one
I'm
of those,
excited this year.
right? I'm one of those old school types who I resent holidays peaking up before Thanksgiving, but we've done Thanksgiving. It's well December. There's snow on the ground, and I think full on Christmas and Hanukkah. Let's party on. But yes, you look very Christmassy, and we did not confer, but I am
That's
in
true.
red. You are in green, so I hope everyone's getting in the Christmas spirit. And there's so much to cover. Oh my gosh. Well, let's just start with Mar-a-Lago, if we can, Emerald.
Okay.
I'm freaking out.
Everyone is.
Everyone is. Yeah. It's so disturbing. The last time you and I chatted in the fantastic last episode where we talked about your scorecard, for the transition from the A's to the F's, we didn't have the news that we now have, that Wednesday night there was a dinner in Mar-a-Lago with the heads of some of the most evil pharmaceutical companies, and President-elect Trump and RFK Jr. What the heck? Is it 5-dimensional chess? Is it 12-dimensional chess? Are we in another dimension in which these guys are not the biggest war criminals on earth? What is going on? Emerald, what is your read of that?
I hear the 4D, 5D chess argument every single day. I have heard that every single day for, at least the last 8 years, literally. I know I'm going to get in trouble for this. Trump really doesn't play, 9 times out of 10, there is not 4D or 5D chess going on. And sometimes even when the outcome looks like it that way, it's literally like God took care of it for him or it was an accident. I do truly believe he is blessed by God, and he does, and God helps him a lot. But yeah, I do not see this. And it's, as you noted, these people many of them have committed crimes against humanity.
Right.
I don't think you wine and dine them. At this point, you come from a position of power.
Right.
Now here, I know some of my friends who are on Mounjaro are going to be excited because they were worried about the future of tirzepatide, the weight loss drug.
Oh, God.
I think since Eli Lilly is getting to expand its operations by $3 billion in Kenosha, probably if you're on Mounjaro, you might be happy today because probably safe on getting your tirzepatide.
Right. So disturbing. So what do you make of the appearance of RFK Jr. at that dinner? I mean, that can't have been a comfortable...
That was my question for you.
Okay.
You're supposed to give perspective on that because I'm kind of surprised by it. So what do you make of his
okay, well,
appearance?
There are various ways to interpret this news, right? I'm going to go with old school political treachery, and bear with me. It's not who you think. Say the meeting, it could be very, very clever. I mean, I hear what you just said about President Trump. However, he does seem to get extraordinary outcomes from his negotiations, with some of the most awful people around the world, right? The most unreasonable people around the world. So I do think he has a mastery of how to, I'm almost going to say almost like mafioso negotiating, right?
You mean the art of the deal?
Yes, but I think that, just from my experience of hardball politics at that level, whatever's in the book, The Art of the Deal, stops way short of the kind of strong arm tactics that people actually engage in, in and around the White House, of people on both sides of the aisle. So where I'm going with this is, I keep thinking Emerald, you're probably too young to remember Snoopy and Peanuts, right? But there was a character named
Snoopy.
You know Snoopy? Okay, fine. We all know Snoopy. Well, then you know Lucy, that nasty little character who used to love holding the football and then whisking the football away when someone tried to kick it. I feel like that's President Trump's negotiating style sometimes, and that he's so powerful that people just have to race at the football that he's holding. So where I'm going with that is when I worry, I can see that he harnessed all the power of Maha and this magical combination of RFK Jr. and himself, right in the center.
Yeah.
Wait, bear with me. Got in on the basis of that, which he wouldn't have, I'm convinced, without that combination, and is setting up RFK Jr. to not get confirmed. Like that's, and that would be a win-win.
Oh.
Right? He still gets in, he still gets to be president. He doesn't have the headache of this crusader with so many big enemies. Leaving that aside, but with the same logic of, kind of cynical chess playing, I could see him having a make nice dinner with all these war against humanity criminals, saying something like, let's work together to defeat cancer, which is the clever talking point they released, although they're releasing it at just the moment that all this news is coming out that SV40 accelerators in the Pfizer vaccines accelerate cancer. But
cancer is going to be a big moneymaker in the next few years.
Big moneymaker, that's right. But I could see him saying, okay, here's RFK Jr., he's a decent guy, we're not going to go after you in any serious way. There's a lot of money to be made elsewhere. We'll let bygones be bygones. He can say whatever he wants, right? Then he gets RFK Jr., then he gets them to stand down to allow RFK Jr. to be confirmed. And then RFK Jr. goes after them, drags their asses off to prison. I could see either of those.
Yeah, I can see that. And, that kind of gets to, in the last episode, which I'm going to repost because we'll probably refer to it a lot right now. So if you want to go back for reference to the conversation that I am referencing, I'll do that. It goes back to the way he conducted some foreign policy the first time around, right? The story, John Bolton be his little dog on a leash where the rabid little dog is trying to bomb everybody across the globe, and Trump's holding and saying, look, to Kim Jong-un or to the Ayatollah, look, I'm gonna release this dog on you.
Right.
But really I don't want to. Dog. It's not me. Right. I don't want to do it. This is the dog that wants to bomb you. But maybe, and it could be a little good, I guess I would say good cop, bad cop routine a bit later on. You're referencing getting. Here's
this rabid dog, RFK Jr. I don't want to lose him. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Interesting. How would that play out in a dinner?
Just you already have the presence of RFK Jr. I'm not saying that's it. I said he does kind of, I'm not saying that's the tactic, but he does sometimes bring the, the bad cop, and RFK Jr. in this situation would, in the future, represent the bad cop. So he already kind of has him there and established. But I do think that, look, I would be surprised. There is a lot of money that doesn't want RFK Jr. confirmed. So if RFK looks like he's ingratiating himself to Big Pharma, and we're not saying this is going on. I don't know. I don't have any inside knowledge on this, or I haven't heard anything out of people who talk to RFK. And if you haven't heard from him, then you would be the most likely to know.
I have no knowledge of that kind whatsoever.
So I don't know. But I do know that a lot of people in Maha and the MAGA people who are supportive of Maha are very concerned.
Absolutely. One of my favorite dissidents, most distinguished dissidents, I won't name him, texted me, I may have to become the loyal opposition sooner than I hoped. And I know that people are worried. Those of you who missed our last episode, which we will repost, you know that there were some Fs in there from Emerald's scorecard, and a couple of them were Maha Fs, like Dr. Jeanette Nashewat. really catastrophic choices. So that's a big question mark. And the last thing I would say before we go on, Emerald, yes, to some other stories is there's also, doesn't Trump do basically, how can I put it, mind effing people, just like throwing a lot out there to confuse people, and then they're dealing with their confusion, and then he charts a course that they want.
I would say that it's not necessarily to confuse people. I was on a radio show earlier today. We were talking about, of course, the nominees and the picks and the transition and the confirmation process.
Right.
And I love this radio host out of Philadelphia, John Heasley, said, well, this guy didn't make it through the public confirmation process.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I thought that was a great term. So this is what Trump does a lot. He lets the public vet decisions, people. He throws all these ideas or people out there, and he sees how it plays in the public.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, so this could be a focus group, essentially using the whole country as his focus group, basically seeing how much people hate this. What would it do if he had RFK Jr. in the administration and kind of made nice with all these murderers that everyone who has a financial stake, wants to make nice with, of course, except RFK Jr. essentially, and how much political capital would he burn? That's interesting. I will credit that. And I hope that people are letting him know that he will burn a heck ton of political capital, because I know he's not going to run again. Vance is going to run, presumably. Maybe RFK Jr. will run 4 years from now. But no one, I'm persuaded, on the Republican side is going to win an election in the future without that center. I think this MAGA alignment is an alignment for the next 100 years. And it would be, as I tweeted or X'd or whatever, Maha can throw our support elsewhere if our hearts are broken by this candidate. And that's something that, grassroots groups should always bear in mind. You don't elect someone and they get your Christmas list. You elect someone and then you keep threatening to bring your support elsewhere if they don't continue to give you the deliverables. Is there anything else you want to say about that before we move on to another story I want to bring to your brain?
No, it's a little bit early. So I was particularly disappointed that he was having dinner with Zuckerberg, and some people said, oh, well, keep your enemies closer.
I didn't even talk about that.
But look, what I know is that when I asked a Secret Service agent once, when I was covering the White House during the Trump years, like, who's the most, because I make chitty chat. That's how you actually find out a lot of stuff. I'm like, oh, so like, who's the person who comes in here the most? The famous person, like, who comes in here the most?
Is that the affect you use, Emerald? Is it like with the shoulder?
That's kind of how I imagined myself in this moment 4 years ago or 5 years ago. But this was like 2020, early 2020. And they're like, oh, that Facebook guy, the guy that owns Facebook. And I went, Mark Zuckerberg? And I was actually shocked. I was surprised. He's like, yeah, that guy. Anyway. And so, I first thought, well, maybe it's Jared Kushner, but then I later found out it was actually Trump. So,
oh my gosh.
And you saw how Trump they didn't really follow through on what they had talked about even the first 4 years in censorship, because before y'all were experiencing it, we were already starting to experience it in, the traditional conservative world.
Really?
And then I've pretty much always faced some kind of level of shadow banning, censorship, in the time I've been on, Twitter and Facebook as a public figure.
Right.
And so I don't really know a world where I haven't been censored. I have no idea what my reach would really be. And I also know that the numbers can be really fake. Don't look at numbers, and they're kind of fake, y'all. But I just knew, and they kept telling they're going to do these executive orders, and they did it. And then when I found out he's like having dinner with Zuckerberg, when Zuckerberg's shutting us all down and even censoring him at that point,
right? I
didn't feel like this was 5 or 4D chess. So I still have that experience and that, frame of reference when I look at this, but, I'm willing to hope they're going to make some kind of genius move.
I mean, I certainly hope so, because, let's remind everyone that Zuckerberg is not a neutral horrible big tech guy, like Google's a fairly neutral, horrible big tech company, right? But I mean, they're horrible to everyone. But Zuckerberg is the initiator of Zuckbucks, which is corruptly funding get out the vote efforts across the country that skew Democrat. I mean, he's a D creature for sure. And
well, on our side, we just say Zuckerbucks helped to rig the 2020 election and steal it from Donald Trump.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true. And let's not forget, Zuckerberg invested in the vaccines and promoted the vaccines, and it was part of the COVID-19 project that united all these tech companies to suppress dissent about the lockdowns and the vaccines and the lab leak and so on, and force us into the hideous years of 2020 to 2024. So he's evil too. I recognize that at that level, Trump probably has to make some kind of accommodation with him. I don't know that you can track crimes to his door the way you can with some of these other characters. But it is concerning, because if, here's the new cop, same as the old cop kind of thing, right? If the new Trump administration aligns with the same evil globalists that have ruled us for the last 4 years, we're going to have to invent a whole new opposition. And that's going to be very, very difficult, because who's left, essentially. That said, it's a time of awakening when the people are feeling their power. So let's just keep holding their feet to the fire. Emerald, before we go on, there's some great comments from our lovely viewers, which are rapidly growing in number. Over 3,300 people have joined us live. Lisa says RFK has a rep as a bulldog who doesn't let things go. So I can see that approach working. Can't see that approach working of being conciliatory. Lisa says, apropos of Dr. Jeanette Nishewat, yes, that woman is a total loser. What kind of pick was she, right? Cynthia Klippel is probably talking to me when she says, you did not experience the positive when he was in office. We love him. That's fair enough. I am definitely a slow and reluctant convert to supporting this president, which I now do. And Cat Daddy says, Elon is not a fan of Zuck. This time he doubts Zuck visits much. That's very interesting. But you know what? I mean, call me crazy, but I do feel like socially the alignment of RFK Jr. and all of his people with Trump and all of his people kind of are going to change who the cool kids are. And tech bros can't stand to not be where the cool kids are. I can really see, and we talked about Monica Crowley, right? She's so cool, right? Nicole Shanahan, so cool. Tulsi Gabbard, super cool, right? Jay Bhattacharya, so cool. I can really see, people from my background are slaves to social status. And I can really see the White House becoming, like during the Kennedy years, such a magnet of coolness and glamour and talent and accomplished people that no matter what your background, no one will want to not go there. So I can imagine dinner parties with RFK Jr., Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, God knows who else. But I could see it happening. That doesn't mean I support, everyone having impunity for what they did to us over the last 4 years. But I can see that overcoming a lot of divisions. Interesting. And Joseph F. Emerald's looking good, says Fahid Amrul.
Thank you, Fahid. I'll take that. I appreciate it, especially on a Friday evening. I'm pretty tired.
You never don't look perfect, Emerald. Trump just wants to be accepted by the elite. It's about ego. This goes back decades, says Joseph F.
Unfortunately, I agree with you on that a lot, Joseph.
Really?
I think that is, I adore the man. Look, don't get me wrong. I just put up there, and it's just like, I know, I say this to my husband too. It's kind of, you have this really, it's like a boyfriend or ex-boyfriend, you're like, I love him, I hate him, with that. And you're like, I will say, and it's not like that, because I know somebody in the press, if it was bad press was watching this, they'll definitely run with that. But I think he was an excellent president. Mm-hmm. I know exactly what he went up against, right? Mm-hmm. They sabotaged him at every angle in that administration, that White House, his own people. that he hired. That's why I'm also concerned, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll never forget how he was when my father died. Um, he just couldn't stand it. The president of the United States, it bothered him so bad that I would lose my coal miner daddy, and for like years he mentions it when I see him.
That's so sweet.
So I'm saying that, but I also recognize that, like Joseph F. USA is saying, that is a character flaw that he has. It's almost a Shakespearean type character flaw.
Really?
When it comes to being president or leader of the free world, you can't have that desire to want people to be accepted by the elite in the moment that we're in. And I hope this time he overrides it. It doesn't look like it so far.
But where do you see that? I mean, I lived in New York for decades when he was a fixture in the social world, the liberal social world, actually, here in New York City. And he's been accepted by the elite for decades. He got rejected by the elite when he embraced MAGA. But, there were decades and decades he was hanging out with Oprah and hedge fund guys and Masters of the Universe. And, I don't see that he was not accepted by the elite. They always called him as that, that comic news site said, a short-fingered vulgarian. They always thought he was a bit of a parvenu, like a social climber. I mean, it is true they always looked down on him for class reasons, but they also accepted him at the same time. Does that make sense? I mean, my people are awful. They're awful, right? They can accept people and still insult them. I mean, that is true socially. Do you know what I mean?
I do. I mean, my experience with the elite is much less extensive, having come from the holler and not, I don't have, my experience of Donald Trump is what I know of him really since he started running for president and had been president. So I don't, I saw him on TV. I knew him on The Apprentice.
Right.
But yeah, I don't have, but yes, I have had that experience with being now in the political world and the media world. It is quite amazing at how people can be like that. They can literally, still look down on you, but they have to kind of accept you because, you're in this world now.
Right. Well, this is fascinating. I mean, it really makes you wonder what kind of White House he and Melania Trump will convene.
We'll see.
Yeah. But I do think the addition of Monica Crowley, as we said in our last episode,
I love her.
In charge of protocol for the
Here's
world.
what I would juxtapose to that is going to be an interesting dynamic, right? Let's just think about today or this week. Let's think about who, yes, Donald Trump has had at Mar-a-Lago and he's dining with. And then let's think about, we're going to have a vice president, J.D. Vance, who wrote Hillbilly Elegy.
Hillbilly Elegy, yep.
And today he drops into Western North Carolina, on a surprise visit, which if you've watched us, you would know that was, if you've heard me or Naomi talk this week, probably you would know that's coming because I knew it was a potential for that happening. And instead of meeting with the politicians, he met with a lot of the, grassroots people. He met with Samaritan's Purse, though, which is a big organization, but building houses. But he also talked to this one acquaintance I've now made through all of this, Sean Hendricks, who was working with a team of 5 people. And that includes like a girl that I knew for 20 years that we go back to her early 20s. And she's like, more your side of things, Naomi. So she and I keep bumping into each other every few years. But we've reconnected through this. And I had no idea she was working with him. And then he's working with another lady. The team of 5 includes a lady that I worked on election integrity with.
Oh my gosh.
Of the 5 people, those are the people. And, JD's calling, he calls them and he listens to what they have to say and the ideas they have about how you actually rebuild and help these people, and had a detailed conversation with his team with just these, regular people in North Carolina working on the ground. So I think that there's a real opportunity here. Like you said, I'm not for dining with people who committed crimes against humanity. I want real accountability. So I don't care what you say. I'm going to be stickler on that, and I'm going to call it out all the time. And people are going to get mad at me. But I'm a little bit traumatized from the last few years.
Yes.
So forgive me. I might, and somebody said, I think Emerald has PTSD. I think maybe so.
We all do. We all have PTSD. Yeah.
Yeah, but there is going to be I think with JD's background and Trump's background and who we are, I mean, you could get this real mix of, all kinds, yes, the elites, which, we have, the elites have gotten a really, that word now has a really bad connotation, right? The ruling class.
Right.
It's hard to see anyone in that group and think, when you use that terminology, think of them being for the good of the American people.
Right.
So there's some struggles to overcome there, and maybe, I don't know, it'll be interesting at the very least.
But Emerald, I mean, I think we should go on to JD Vance's visit to North Carolina in just a minute, but imagine that, what you just said. It's really potentially very beautiful and revolutionary. What if there are dinner parties, and I keep saying dinner parties because I'm a big believer that transformational change can happen when people sit down and break bread together and have a conversation over a glass of wine. But, imagine if the Camelot of 2025 on is people who, like JD Vance, whose mom was a drug addict or a methamphetamine. What is it? Opioid addict. People like, Trump with his very unusual background, Melania, an immigrant from Eastern Europe, people like Elon Musk, people like Tulsi Gabbard. I mean, it's my experience that when people from different backgrounds and walks of life talk together constructively, you get the best culture, the best politics, the best policy, right? It would be very exciting. It would break through the stupid bubbles on both sides of the aisle in DC, possibly.
I mean, it sounds like we're talking about a utopia. And it does remind me a bit of, how I hear people describe Camelot and JFK. I mean, I think we feel a bit hopeful, but again, we're going into it with so many scars.
Yeah, we are.
Of course, we're also going to be gun shy. We're going to be like those little skittish kitties because we have been through a lot. But yeah, I think there's potential. Wouldn't it be beautiful? I mean, it would be beautiful.
Beautiful. And you know what? If their dinner parties are not that beautiful, our dinner parties will be that beautiful because we bring people together.
Totally.
All right, so let's talk about this incredible trip. Vice President-elect JD Vance, this is Associated Press, today assured residents of Western North Carolina still cleaning up from Hurricane Helene that they haven't been forgotten as he surveyed storm wreckage and talked to first responders in one of his first public appearances since the election. And here's the quote, "My simple message to the people of Appalachia is that we haven't forgotten you. We love you," said Vance, who made a name for himself writing about the region in his memoir, Hillbilly Elegy. He added, "Certainly when this administration changes hands in the next 45 days, we're going to do everything that we can to help people rebuild, to get them back on their feet, to bring some commerce back to the area, but most importantly, to allow people to live in their homes." What do you think of that soundbite? It's kind of pitch perfect, isn't it?
It was perfect. And so that meant a lot to me as someone from Appalachia and I literally have loved ones in Western North Carolina, not that that are still victims, but are working very hard to help the people who are struggling. And talking about reaching people who don't always see eye to eye with you, I could already tell you those words and that visit has had a major effect on people who usually would probably turn the channel when JD Vance came on. It meant so much to people for him to show up and in the way that he did it. Now, of course, you and I are political animals and communication animals. So I will say, for those of you out there who are like us and think about it, this was just really freaking smart. Really smart, really well done. Didn't show up like a photo opportunity. Went in very quietly. Didn't make this whole big deal and reaching out to the people on the ground. Reach out like a guy, like, "Hey, this is JD Vance. I want to know what's going on because we want to help."
Right.
That's how he came across to the people that he talked to.
Wow.
And sincerely listened, asked lots of questions, and it was very, very well done. Now, what will need to happen, and I do believe will happen, is the actual follow up on it. From the administration. I think here's what I think does happen based on, because I do have conversations. They really listened to what people had to say and the ideas, and a lot of that was about changing the rules and the red tape that has currently been in place to, that doesn't really let FEMA help, and that a lot of that was based on the specific initiatives of this Biden administration that won't be in place the next time around. So they're going to try to do away with that really quickly and get people to help. But they're also are looking at how they can help now, even before they're in office. And that's just kind of from a personal capacity, I think.
Wow.
Which would be even more endearing, right? I know that there are people that are around Vance that are personally reaching out and just trying to help. I mean, this really, really resonated in a big way with the people of Western North Carolina, and even the people in the heart of Asheville, which is a very blue territory.
Super blue, right. I mean, crisis knows no partisanship, right?
And that's what we saw.
Right. The other thing I love about his language, maybe it's him because he is good with words.
Maybe it's him.
Oh, wow. Well, it's perfect because it's not a partisan message, right? It's not, he's not taking a single cheap shot. He's not saying this is all about me. This is all about President Trump. He's saying we're going to help you stay in your homes. And the other thing I know from that phrase is that acknowledges that people are struggling to stay on their land, right? Which you'd have to know something about what's going on down there to know that that's the struggle that people are facing. What would you say to that as a daughter of the holler?
He does. And I know one conversation specifically he had with Sean Hendricks, who's with Operation Shelter. That's what it sounds like Sean really tried to highlight for him, is that, look, they're giving the money. What the current lay of the land is, they want to give them money for their land and move them off the land, right? For these green initiatives. But they want these people, they're afraid. They're like literally afraid, even if they could go get a hotel for shelter, they're afraid to leave their land. They have no trust that the current government is not going to come take it away from them, or that there's some play to get their land. And that is legitimate. Those are legitimate concerns.
Totally.
And that's, I had one of your associates, as I told you in the last episode on your show, Brianna Sagdahl, outlined it better. And I went around and I asked people, other policy people, like, does this sound right to you? And they said, yeah, this absolutely sets up a land grab. So that's legitimate concerns. And so JD Vance, also, I know that he has been, he's been keeping his finger on the pulse. He's been following it. He's been talking to people. I know he's been talking to people because he reached out to me.
JD Vance reached out to you?
Yeah.
My heart goes pitter pat. That's so exciting.
Yeah. And he let me know that he was listening.
Each other from before?
Yeah, I've known JD for a few years. I mean, remember before he ran for the Senate, I mean, he wrote the book Hillbilly Elegy, and he would come and give talks, and he was, at CPAC, and he's at Faith and Freedom. And we have a lot of mutual colleagues because, we're talking about dinner parties. I mean, thinkers and writers like to get together and have dinner parties and talk. And at the end of the day, there's not that many of us that are ideologically aligned in DC. So you end up knowing all the same people, being friends with all the same people. So
isn't that fascinating? Well, maybe you'll be the vice president's muse, and you can channel right to him the brilliant ideas that we come up with in our show. And your own brilliant ideas. I love it. Well, I'm glad that you're telling him where to go in Asheville. If he's listening to you, he's showing good judgment. And just to update people about where exactly they went, the incoming vice president and his wife, Usha, visited the Fairview Volunteer Fire Department, where they heard that the building flooded with 4 to 6 inches of water, and that roughly a dozen people contracted walking pneumonia as they responded to the hurricane's destruction. He also toured a house that's being rebuilt, and apropos of what you said, and maybe you gave them this idea, the construction is being undertaken by Samaritan's Purse, an evangelical Christian charity led by Franklin Graham, son of the late Pastor Billy Graham. Oh, another great soundbite. Quote, "We want you to have the best Christmas as you possibly can have despite the circumstances," he said in a message to residents. Unbelievable. So good. Well, thank you very much, Emerald Robinson, for, well informing the vice president about where to go. That was a home run. And it's nice to see. I mean, I was aware that Trump by himself literally never got good legacy media coverage. This is Associated Press, which has a memorandum of understanding with Xinhua, which is the Chinese Communist Party's, news organization. And they're as evil as globalists can possibly be. And they had to give good coverage to this visit. So it's definitely a home run. He's definitely an asset. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we go on to our next subject?
I would just say that outside of the, clearly we talk about how it plays in the media and stuff. I really think that this does, and the people there are hopeful that this does mean that there is help coming, because there are so many people in need.
Right.
And I will say on the Christmas front, my friend who is on my show tonight at 8 p.m., Erin Durham, who is a filmmaker, documentary filmmaker, and her husband are some of those people that have been putting out some of that amazing footage that you've been seeing of the utter destruction and devastation in North Carolina. They do the drone footage, and she edits it.
Wow. It is incredible.
They're like you. They find themselves supporting the Trump administration, as far as their efforts here, for sure, when they probably didn't think they would be like doing,
really?
But she did this cute little video where Santa did go. He went around to the devastation. There's a Santa in Asheville going around, and he went to the stores and he's been buying gifts for people. And there are several. I don't have the list right now, but there are places where you can donate new toys for Christmas gifts for the kids there, so that they can have some kind of Christmas.
That's so moving. And a couple of questions from our viewers. Now over 5,000 people are watching live. It says Prayer X10. Where did you watch JD Vance in Asheville? Is it available? I'm sure it is. Right?
Yeah. You know what I actually did is I was just scrolling through social media, and it was just clips from WLOS had a reporter. So they obviously alerted the local news affiliate. WLOS had a reporter who was on the ground and sharing clips, as he was going around with JD Vance. It looks like Fox may have been the pool camera. So they always have it. And so they had it on. It wasn't Fox. It wasn't like the main Fox. It was on that Fox app, Fox Live, or I think they call it. But there wasn't a lot of video out there. And a lot of it was, here is why. And I won't necessarily knock the mainstream media this time, because I always am. And I like to take every opportunity. But JD and his team really seemed to not want to make it a photo op.
Wow. Smart.
They didn't. Usually the reason you would get to see it is because there would be a ton of media there, because they have reached out to every media they can think of and begged them to show up. That didn't happen in this case. He just went, and they obviously alerted the local affiliate, and they had a pool camera. So there's not a ton of footage out there. I'm hoping that, I understand that they don't want to make it look political, but I do hope that maybe they had a videographer with them that could do a good video to sum up what he did see, so that more people can see it.
Yeah, well, you text your friend JD, Emerald, because it is hard to see the actual footage. I didn't see it in my social media feed or on the networks, and that's priceless. And just as you say, it doesn't have to be a big feature story. If they've got the raw footage, they could just clip it and seed it all over social media, and that will do wonders for JD Vance's and the administration's positive reception, again, in a nonpartisan way. A couple of wonderful comments, if I may, from Coyote. One is, the elite never break the kayfabe. They will throw mud at each other, but when forced to choose between the commoner and the other elite, they choose the other elite. And he or she goes on to say, Camelot is now just a reflection of team humanity. Truth and authenticity is winning over everything. Prayer hands. We're in an only truth world now. I love that. Lisa says, I absolutely believe it's a land grab in the Appalachians. If that fails, I think feds will try to use eminent domain to take the land they want. Anything in closing you want to say about the Appalachian situation before we go on to actually
I would agree with, was it Lisa who said that about the land grab? And there's, like I said, there's some really good literature. And you know what? I'll just share it in the comments, that paper that explains the executive orders that allow for this to happen, for them to take the land, because with more people knowing about it, the more you can push back against it. But that's why I also feel that J.D. Vance's presence there, his visit there today, was so important, because they will be the ones that make these policy decisions. And I know for a fact that that has been put forth to him, and there's more literature that people want him to see. And I do believe he'll read it. So I'm hoping that we're able to stop this land grab.
You know, it's crazy, Emerald. I interviewed yesterday someone named Robert Barnes, who is
yeah.
Oh, you know who that is? He's a lawyer for free speech and criminal tax issues, and he's speaking up on behalf of Roger Ver, who is in prison in Spain, kind of hounded by the IRS, probably also because he's a critic of the administration, a free speech advocate, and a champion of crypto, which is, you know, one of the things that makes it hard to control people. I'm saying all of this just because I think the people of North Carolina, you know, Roger Ver, a number of people are literally hanging on for 45 days, you know, to be redeemed in a lot of ways, or kept safe, or rescued from freezing. I mean, I've never seen anything like this in America in my life. I mean, there are people who will freeze to death in North Carolina, you know, if help doesn't come in time in the form of a new administration. Isn't that extraordinary? Did you ever think you'd see anything like this in the United States?
Not as fast as it happened.
Right.
I think if you'd asked me a decade ago, is this going to eventually happen? Absolutely, because there's been the slow progression.
Right.
But it sped up so much in 2016, and then in 2020, it moved much faster than I could ever imagine. And that's why this was such a pivotal moment, because another 4 years and we would have never, ever come back from it. But there are still several weeks until inauguration day. And as you noted, for many people, this is a life and death matter of weeks. They have to hang on with everything they can, whether it be the people of Western North Carolina who's hoping to get more help to actually have shelter and homes and food, and look to rebuild their jobs, because that's going to be a part of this.
Right.
Also, J6ers who were I mean, those who were convicted of violent crimes that actually didn't commit violence. I talked to a couple today. They're headed to prison on December 17th. They're grandparents, they're pastors, they're Christians. I am amazed by their faith and their perseverance. I don't know if I could handle it in the way that they do, but they're just hopeful. They're holding on till the day that Donald Trump takes office to the situation. I wasn't aware of this client that Robert Barnes is, but I know of other people who aren't speaking up publicly who are in similar situations, and they don't know that they won't have some kind of consequence before Donald Trump takes office.
Right, exactly.
That something will happen.
And
they're just holding their breath.
Totally. And as we said in the last episode, it does seem like this administration is trying to like burn the barn down and loot the house before they walk out the door. So we'll move on to a story I haven't checked with you about. But before we do, I just want to tell you that Prayer X10 says, thank you, Emerald, for your big donations of homes for them, praying prayer hands. And I want to thank you and your husband too for that incredibly generous gift to the people of North Carolina. Let's go on to a story that I did not check in with you about, but I'm fascinated by your take on it. And this is the execution of this health insurance CEO, Brian Thompson, on a street in Midtown Manhattan on like 55th and 6th. I mean, I know that hotel well, I know that street well. It's literally the center of Midtown Manhattan. And a United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson, was gunned down by an unidentified man outside a Midtown Manhattan hotel, who remains at large after the attack on Wednesday, with police tracking his movements. And they have not recovered the shooter's backpack. They're searching Central Park as of today. They know allegedly, I mean, everything about this story stinks to high heaven to me, but he entered by bus. A surveillance camera caught him allegedly at Port Authority, may have originated in Atlanta. They're investigating whether he left New York City by bus on Wednesday after the murder. They've got video, but the video already is dodgy because the new video the police are showing doesn't match up in any way with the video from Wednesday. And Brian O'Shea, my husband, well, I think he's already broken this, so I don't think I'm pre-breaking it, but he's a surveillance and intel guy, and he's gone on thousands of surveillance jobs, and he points out that there's no way that target could have been identified right then by the shooter, that rather the van and or the woman who ran away are both part of the spotting. And, you know, in other words, it was a team. So that looks like a very professional or semi-professional hit. He also looked at the guy's stance, and it looks like an execution. And I read it as a threat to other insurance and health insurance executives, because they know where the bodies are buried, literally and figuratively. They know about the sudden deaths. They know about whether people died of COVID or of the vaccine. They know everything about the crimes of 2020 to 2024. And I'm sorry to burst this upon you without clearing it with you in advance, but I'm dying to know your thoughts about this story.
You know what? I have not followed this one as closely. I'm fascinated by it because Brian did text me a little bit. You know, we're in a group text, and he texted me a little bit his thoughts on the spotters, and I hadn't even gotten to go back and really look at what he was talking about. I would think my takeaway is that I would think that this would make healthcare and insurance executives very nervous across the board. I hadn't thought about it maybe in the perspective that you had thought about it. That makes sense. It could be for a couple reasons, right? Because yeah, they do. It's such a professional job. It's hard to imagine that this is a disgruntled, you know, someone who is very upset with the insurance industry because they denied a claim to their dying father for treatment that would have likely kept them alive for a little while longer, you know, and I'm a little more surprised there's not more attempts for that, because we have a real problem, right, with, you know, healthcare in our country. And as someone whose dad had cancer and died from cancer, and the kind of, I mean, you have to, the healthcare system is not going to be nice to you and take care of you and just try to keep you alive on its own, right? You have to have it, or you're probably going to die in it. Especially after 2020, I'm totally down on them. But so this would seem like such a professional job. And then the pictures you see, nothing adds up. So it is very interesting, your suggestion that they do know where the bodies are buried. If there's any kind of accountability, and they have to go testify, and they have to talk about what happened and what they saw. I don't know. I don't want to speak so much on it because I don't really know. I will just say I'm actually surprised more of these people are not shot at, because, oh, did you see though? There was one healthcare group that decided not to do their cut on anesthesia.
Yes, but Emerald, I'm going to ask you to walk that back. That sentence, or it'll be taken out of context.
Oh, what did I say?
So I'm surprised more of these people are not shot. Let's walk that.
There's not more attempts on there, you know, because there is, you know, I look, I just had a friend whose dad died this week, and she told me the horrific kind of treatment that he received at end of life, and how the insurance didn't want to approve anything just to make him even a little more comfortable. So I didn't mean it like that, but I am surprised that they don't have to be more afraid walking around, in all honesty. And did you see that this other insurance company decided not to go through with a policy change they were about to enact, I think the very next day, that would have cut certain benefits to anesthesia if you're getting, you know, surgery? Clearly scared them a little bit. I don't know. I don't know enough about it. I probably shouldn't say anything else.
No, I think
something very problematic.
I think we've covered it. And I mean, to me, the real, I guess, red flag or anomaly, the thing that stuck out is there was a New York police officer who basically said, I think other health executives should get security. And that's just not the job of a New York police officer to say that. So I definitely read that as a threat, or as a message. And I mean, there are a lot of messages being sent, and little Peter Hotez, is it Peter Hotez? Yes, that little troll.
The bow tie guy.
I'm sorry, that awful man, basically saying, oh, there's going to be tuberculosis and Black Plague and cholera, and, you know, you're going to be bleeding at the mouth on January 21st, because that's all coming down the line. Like, literally, he sounded and looked like he was issuing a threat against the Trump administration.
But that does worry me, because Dr. Fauci said in January 2017, Donald Trump will face a global pandemic. And guess what? Dr. Fauci would know, because he funded it. And Donald Trump did face a global pandemic. And Hotez is what? You call him a Fauci acolyte? I mean, he is kind of he's in the Fauci camp. So it does worry me a little bit, him saying that. I don't want to live in fear. But
no, I agree with you. It worries me as well. I guess I'm just noticing that these people seem like cornered animals, and I'm not saying they're not dangerous.
Desperate.
Yeah.
Desperate people are people are dangerous.
Exactly. And Lisa added, I read that some healthcare insurers removed their executive bios from websites now.
That makes sense.
Understandable. But what a banana republic we've become, that, you know, changes in policy in healthcare result because someone gets executed in broad daylight.
They can't just do the right thing from the start.
Right, exactly. Let's move on in our last few moments. Are there other stories I haven't brought up before I ask you to talk a little bit about being a working mom?
Oh, you know what? Here's a really nice story. Okay. Let's end on a positive note, right?
Yeah, let's do it.
So we're talking about, you know, what we were just talking about. Donald Trump is going to France tomorrow for the reopening of Notre Dame.
Nice.
Yeah, this is in a private capacity. This is not an official visit, because he's not president yet. But, you know, after I was disheartened when the spire was burned. I hate to see history burn.
Right.
Especially as a woman of faith, it being, you know, such an iconic church as Notre Dame. So I think that's a bright moment and a wonderful story. If you have time tomorrow to look at some positive footage of that, perhaps there is a rebuilding in our future. Perhaps it's a good omen at the start of at the changeover into a new administration. So look, I can be positive.
That is positive, and what a lovely symbol. He's got someone making good decisions. I know you're very critical, Harold, but I love that they're bringing in culture and faith and these how can I put it? Given that he's got such a reputation in the legacy media and whatever Northeastern annoying liberal circles as a vulgarian, it's very beautiful and clever to have him pay attention to things like a beautiful cathedral. You know, I hope they bring poets to the White House. I hope they bring musicians. I hope they talk about bringing American culture back into schools so that kids know how to write quatrains instead of just knowing about 18 imaginary genders. I think it's smart for him to be doing things that are, you know, elevated like that, and not vulgar, right? That's a beautiful.
It'd be a moment of renaissance, right? Where we've lost all of that for so many years. It would be beautiful. Look, I'm married to a poet. So I would very much welcome that. And the way he won me over for our first date was with his poetry. So I, for one, would also love to see that in the White House.
That's so sweet. How did he do that, if I may ask? I mean, poetry's beautiful, but did he just like whip out a poem and start declaiming?
Well, I don't think you read his beautiful poetry. I think you might have his Terminal Diagrams book, which is it's like industrial poetry. It's like
but it's
driving through the city of commerce in Los Angeles at night, listening to some electronic music. He reached out to me on social media. Oh, well, we're getting real personal here on Facebook. I wouldn't answer him back. I think I answered like a couple times. I wasn't having anything to do with him, and he saw that I really love the theater, and I do. I am definitely a patron of the arts and always have been. and he sent me a play he was writing in blank verse.
Wow.
And who writes in blank verse?
That's bold.
In the 2000s?
That's a bold move. Hats
And
off.
I was expecting to read it and laugh, and for it to be terrible. It was beautiful and extremely well written. And I thought, I have to find out who this guy, a little more about this guy. I'm going to talk to him more. And then I was done. Then it was over. I was sold.
Very, very, very elegant, fantastic move, very bold. And I'm so happy for you because I'm such a big fan of your husband. And more men should do that, right? Duly noted, everyone, if you want, one of the most beautiful women in America who's also a killer investigative journalist, like one of the last investigative journalists in America, to consider you or someone like her, practice your poetry, get that iambic pentameter down. Maybe we are entering a new golden age, Emerald. Well, we've come to the end of our time. We've covered a lot. Let's talk another time today. Yeah, let's talk another time about how to have a job and be a mom. That's something that fascinates both of us. We've come to the end.
Which comes after the poetry.
Which comes after the poetry, exactly. Poetry first, but also poetry during, right? I mean,
yeah.
I quoted in a recent essay of mine that Denise Levertov poem, "Life after life goes by without poetry, without seemliness, without love." And maybe the golden age that we're entering or that we can bring about will have poetry and seemliness and civilization and civility and love and all those things again. Let's hope and let's also act on it, everyone. Where can people find you, Emerald Robinson?
Of course, always at my Substack at emerald.tv, on X at Emerald Robinson, which you're probably watching it on right now, a lot of you. And then also you can watch me every night at 8 p.m. Eastern on frankspeech.com or the Roku, Apple TV app, Frank Speech, on my Absolute Truth show, which is it's very different from this. It's the daily rundown of the news and some insider information, but in a more of a news format. So it's fun to come in. I always love coming and talking with you, Naomi. It's so different from what I do usually.
Likewise, and also so different from what I do usually. A lot more fun. I always feel energized and hopeful after we chat. And everyone, before we go, I just want to also thank our sponsors, Birch Gold. Things are crazy and getting crazier. The BRICS companies are trying to align to de-dollarize the world. No matter what happens after January 20th economically, the president is inheriting an economic mess of a giant dimension. And I'm persuaded that gold is an incredible hedge for your portfolio, no matter how big or small your savings. It's really important to diversify and to have some of your savings, some of your IRA in gold. Brian and I are persuaded. I just chatted with people at Birch Gold yesterday to open up an IRA in gold, and not just a savings account. And I'm really glad I did. I feel relieved. So they're also fantastically transparent as a company. So many 4-star reviews, A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau. There are a lot of gold companies out there, but we're proud to partner with them because they're so trustworthy, transparent, and accountable. So to support us, but also to take care of yourselves, please text the word Daily Clout to 989898. You just text 989898 and the word Daily Clout, and you will get a fantastic info kit and everyone saying thank you, thank you, thank you. Yay for good Christian men. Thank you both. Nice Jewish men are good too. Nice Muslim men. We like them all. Thank you all for doing this show, says Clay Marcus. And thank you all for watching.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, Emerald, and love to your family, and love to all of you.